You're walking. I love it. I love the walking meetings. I do that every other day on my cardio, listen to audio. I love it. Hi, Kelly. Good to see you. And Rocco Manfredi team. I didn't know if it would be Rocco. I saw the name. I was like, oh, that's a familiar name as we're doing our 10-year anniversary coming up. So we're celebrating all past clients, current clients. So welcome. It's good to see you. And Tyler, April. I just saw so many
Welcome,
familiar
Mike.
faces.
Rocco, great.
Yeah, absolutely. Meg, Sandra O'Donoghue, welcome, welcome. Chris Stoico, Jade, hello. So welcome. We just want to kind of say hi to everybody as we come in and let a few people register. And we thank you for joining us because, of course, it is a July in summer. And we had almost 150 people register for this particular session today. So we're excited about that. And we're always grateful when we have people joining us in summer. And I know some people will grab the recording. So I think momentarily we will get started. Let's see here. Oh, Mike Mellon. Hello, hello. Tyler, I see you now. Hello, welcome. Hi. Okay. Bill, what do you think?
Lots of wonderful people. I'm excited.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm excited too. And I think today's topic, Bill and I may be, different seasons in life because Bill's done some of the pieces of the transition ahead today himself personally. He's supported clients, I've supported clients. And I think both of us are really passionate about, changes and lifestyle and how we set up our businesses to support our lives. So you're gonna really feel our commitment to that. And I think it's nice that this is the first masterclass back since I was away 6 weeks when you include Palm Beach for round, and then I was away 5 weeks for wedding and honeymoon. But the truth is, I have an off season every year. And some of the principles we're going to talk about today, I wouldn't be able to have that on season and off season once or twice a year without understanding what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. Bill, any thoughts on that as we go in? I think I'll do a formal introduction, but just as we're warming up, I think we both have reasons why it's an important topic for us.
I'm pretty passionate about this topic. And we've talked about this, Kathleen. And I think the important thing is so many of us work our lives to build something. And so things have value. And I think quite often we overlook the value we have. And so part of it is being conscious in that regard and having a strategy that, hey, what am I building? Most of us, we call ourselves entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or whatever, but that means that's a business. And yet we operate it in many cases, most realtors are still operating it as a job. And they're looking at just the revenue income stream. And it's so much more than that. And it can be so much more than that. And let's be real, 30% of people will have some type of either medical emergency, physical change to their life, emotional changes, personal changes that affect their income streams. So it's important to put that as part of our plan. And unfortunately, we don't. So I'm pretty passionate about looking at this, running it like a business. And that means what's your end purpose? What's your goal? What's succession planning? How do you get passive income? How do you look value? What I'm doing with you, Kathleen. For me, this is now I'm at that point in my life where I don't want all the years of experience that I had in working in a real estate team and building a real estate practice and then coaching to be for naught. So I'm doing this type of stuff with you and with other to ensure that that my legacy and the information that I have in my head doesn't go to waste, it goes to others. So it helps other people.
Yeah,
Boy, that was
absolutely.
long-winded.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have it up here because, new season coming, 10 years, lots of reflection. And I feel the same as Bill. We want to kind of pass forward, what we've learned in the work we do. So we'll start to jump into it because we always have last time, if you were on our wealth building masterclass in April, I'm renowned for adding too much content. So we really made sure this time that we hit all the poignant points without overloading it. So today, officially, we are discussing succession planning. This is a masterclass to help you build an asset, not just a business. And I love, as Bill said, a legacy. So Bill Renaud, I always say, is quite renowned in the team coaching space, and I just began team coaching. I knew who Bill was, and I knew the work that he did. And I mean, that was like 16 or 17 years ago now. Like I wasn't even fully up and running as a coach yet. So it's really fun for us to be able to collaborate and bring our experience together. So we're going to jump into this. But as we do, we want to get some intel from you. There'll only be 2 surveys that we'll do. So the survey should have popped up on your screen already. And we're going to ask you right now, as an entrepreneur, whether you're mortgage, insurance, you're a coach, you're in real estate, whatever you're doing, if you run a business, what is the gross earning level of your business currently? We just want to make sure that we're meeting you where you are today and we're serving you best. So I can see the polls running here.
This is so exciting to be able to get your feedback and try so we can tailor this to people here. And I will mention, if you have any burning questions, we're going to try and cover most things, but put your burning questions into the chat, and one part of our team will make sure that we address them.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think we might have a few more come in, but right now you should all be able to see this. But 48% of those who participated in our poll, thank you, are up to 250,000 gross earnings per year. 30% are 250 to 500,000. 13% are 500,000 to 750. And then we have 2 business owners, one 1 million plus, and one who is at 3 million plus. So depending where you're at in the season of building your business, what Bill and I share you're going to have different takeaways. The important piece is, and I say this all the time, all roads lead to Rome. And I'm not going to explain what I mean by that right now with succession planning, but I will explain it as we move forward. So whether you're at a $250,000 mark or you're at a $3 million mark, if your goal is to have options, to have freedom with your business, to be able to have a lifestyle as you move into new seasons as an entrepreneur, all the same principles are going to be valuable to you. You're going to want to apply the same path essentially. Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about if you're wanting to have freedom to travel, let us know in chat if these resonate with you. How many people here are like, I want to have some succession planning because I want some freedom to travel more? How many of you are doing this because you want security? As Bill said, over 30% of people will experience, a medical dilemma, an illness, a loved one that they need to support. And as we know, these things happen unexpectedly, right? Sometimes they can be quite shocking and a major change to our income levels. I've been following, I don't know if anyone here follows Bruce Johnson. I have so much respect for him, and he's been really open. Bruce has done a phenomenal amount of work raising money for Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. They had lost, a baby daughter a long time ago. And he was diagnosed with lung cancer, now another form of lung cancer, but he's really shared and said, hey, like, we weren't necessarily prepared to stop working right now. Thank goodness we had a plan and we saved, but this wasn't the plan to not have that active income right now. So these things come out of nowhere, of course, and we want to be prepared for that. Do you want the option to retire sooner? Bill, I don't know, your thoughts 10 years ago when people used to say retire, like, why would anyone want to retire? I'm like, to put yourself on a shelf, to not be useful. Like, I never want to retire. Now, 10 years later, I'm like, I want to do more of what I want, but the idea of retirement has become more appealing. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Bill.
Yeah, I do have big thoughts there. And I want to also address Dan on here, his notes. He's also wanting to attract folks that want to retire. That's really important.
Yeah.
This is I've been very successful with helping some of my coaching clients attract people who are phasing out, and how they can have residual income, but also that helps the existing team with their funnel growth. But I want to address me. So prime example, Kathleen, you know the story. So I retired first time from real estate, selling real estate in my mid 50s, 55. That was not the goal. The goal was to retire at 62, but I found myself in a personal and financial situation at 55 that I was able to retire. I thought it was fabulous for, yeah, 2 or 3 years. And I got tired of people saying to me, "So what do you do?" "Oh, I'm semi-retired." "Well, what do you do?" "Well, do you play you golf?" "Well, no, I bicycle and I'm traveling." And, "Well, what do you do?" And you start to understand that your self-worth was built around who you networked with and kept keeping your mind stimulated. So I started expanding my coaching, and now at 70 and a plus, I am no intention of ever retiring because it keeps my mind stimulated. It keeps my brain working and keeps me active. But it's about being at choice. That's the key word here. Do you work because you have to work, or do you work because you want to work and keep your brain stimulated? That's the big choice. That's the question.
Absolutely, being in choice. And this whole time together is about helping to make sure we have choices, because when you get to that next summit or vista or whatever it is for you, you don't know that there might be new paths that you want to take, and you want to make sure you have the resources, right, to have all options available to you. And of
Exactly.
course, do you want to build wealth, not just income? And it's amazing the percentage over the years of even our clients who have said, no, like I have a business, I could sell this business, or I want to, acquire the book of business of other people. And when we dove into it, they were very much still self-employed. They did not have a wealth aspect or a business that they could sell. And that was quite surprising to them. And that's disappointing. We want to get ahead of how do you build a business that gives you options if that's your goal. It's not everyone's goal, but if it is, we want to do that. So most business owners can't retire. And why? Like I just talked about, they didn't build a saleable business. They had a job, but they weren't aware of that. So we want to talk about, some of the pieces you want to have awareness to make sure that you are building, in fact, a saleable business. May have a business, but is it saleable? So what are our most important succession goals? We're going to have one more poll. And if you could please participate in that, it will really help us know where to spend a bit more time in our content today. So what are your succession goals? Is it one, to sell your business? Number two, to sell your book of business? Do it more by way of referrals. Number three, are you more focused on acquiring other people's business right now to build out something residual for you later? And finally, is it tax and residual income, your biggest focus?
So while people are doing this, I think it's also important to address is what is the purpose of a business? And the purpose
Mhm.
of a business is to fund the life that you want to live. So you need to really start with that clarity first. The clarity is, what is the life that you want? You heard Kathleen a few minutes ago talk about her 6 week vacation. You heard her talk about hiking or whatever her passions are. Same for me. I still have a passion for helping other people succeed, but I do have a lifestyle balance. I don't usually work much past noon. Here we are at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'm still working. But typically, those are my goals. So you set up, what is the business that you want? What do you, how's it going to fund the life? And what is the life you want? You need to have really good clarity about what is this goal? What is your life? What is it you want? Ooh, this is
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key, right? Because how often we build a business, we get there and we're like, oh, it's great, I'm making money, but I feel like I've built my own mini prison here, right? And people aren't happy. And then they need to take it apart and rebuild it. So the more you ask where you want to go, the more you can make those little decisions towards getting there. So thank you for everyone participating. This is very helpful. And it's not necessarily what I would have predicted on this call. So far, if you have not participated in the poll, if you could, we just want to make sure we're representing the insight that you want to have here. Because right now, we only have three people who are looking to sell their business. So 18%, 41% sell your book of business. So you're more looking to still kind of refer out, maybe be a little bit active, but you're not looking to kind of sell it to somebody, take a certain amount of cash and check out kind of thing. Third, acquire another book of business. We have 24%. And finally, our top winner, Bill, is tax and
No.
residual income. So we're not looking to necessarily sell or tap out. We're looking to maybe be there less and still be able to make some money off of that business and have some tax shelter. So that is good to know.
It's exciting. I I want to address, if that's okay with you, Kathleen, if I'm not getting ahead of ourselves, 41% of people want to sell their book of business.
Mhm.
We have to be really clear, and Kathleen and I are going to address that coming up, but you have to make sure that you have something that's saleable. So just because you have a mailing list, that is not a value. You need to have a relationships and how you are able to transfer that business to another person
Mhm.
or to another entity. If you're not there, if you're sick, if you're this or you're that, or you're not working as much. So you have to be really clear about, too many people wait too long to sell their book of business, and it has the lowest value. Tax and residual, I'd like to know more what people mean by that.
Mhm. Yeah, if you can tell us more in chat, your perspective of tax and residual of what you're specifically looking to set up your goals, that would be fantastic.
The
Um,
industry has changed so much with prex and so on and so forth. But guys, I will tell you, there's only two things in life that are for sure: death and taxes. We've heard that our whole life. There will be taxes. And so looking at shortcuts doesn't always work. There's still going to be tax implications. It's a matter of, for me, there's several things that I want. I want to make sure I have a body that works. I want to have a real relationships with people in this conversation. That's why we're asking these questions, and be financially secure. At one point in my 40s or early 50s, it was to be wealthy. And that changed when I realized that money wasn't everything. It was about the lifestyle, the quality of life I wanted to live.
mhm. Yeah, 100%. And we have some input. Stacy Prier, part of our team, said I'd love to have passive income that I just oversee the flow and have an operations person to manage. Shauna Bradshaw said have my business work for me and have reduced taxes during my semi-retirement years. And Lorraine Buck Forget, I hope I pronounced that right, Lorraine. Welcome. I'm good to have you here again. Remain active and gradually stepping back over a period of 1 to 2 years.
Yay.
Okay, so let's jump into it. For sure. Hold on a sec. Okay, so without key components. So for those of us, we're going to start out with if you want to sell the business, but the reality is that if, and Bill, I know you'll chime in on this, but I'm going to say it my way as well. When I said all roads lead to Rome, if we want residual income, there's another talk that I've done many times over the years, and it's called residual or retire. And it's designed to allow us to see that if retirement means selling a business, or if semi-retirement means residual, or maybe retirement means residual for you. Maybe, you're going to have somebody else come in and fully run your business. Maybe you're in that position and it's profitable and you'll have residual earnings still off of that business. That's possible. A smaller percentage of people do that. With teams, we've definitely helped clients do that over the years, which is exciting. But the reality is when I say all roads lead to Rome, if you want a standalone business that you're the driver, you're the visionary, and you have a team who's helping you run the day to day, kind of like Stacy Prier put in here, and Shauna, semi said the same. You need the same business entities and the same aspects in your business to be strong, to give you the ability to either sell or give you the ability to have residual. Because when we think about residual, I want to shift the mindset a little bit. If you're not actively working in your business, okay, so you own your business, whatever it is, here nor there, but you're not actively working in it. Like, let's say maybe you come once a month, or you review the numbers, right, to make sure it's profitable. Profit becomes your residual. So if we don't have any profit in the business, or we have a really low profit margin, you don't have the opportunity for residual income. If you have a really low profit margin, we're going to talk about, Bill and I will talk about this more, but it will heavily impact your business evaluation, even if you're making a lot of money. So I want to point out that, you might look at this and say, okay, like I want to still kind of be involved. I don't want to fully sell it. the end of the day, a valuable business, a business that can be sold, a profitable business gives you the ability to have residual income and to set up things without you. So without key components, we're not going to have the value we need. A solo owner without a team or without other people that function in the business is going to bring down your value. No CRM, right? Or it's not updated or it's not enriched. So, you have clients you work with 10 years ago, but they've moved, their phone numbers changed, you haven't contacted them in 7 years, right? You had, 5 years where you didn't add anybody into that CRM. So there's a whole chunk of people missing. Your database is a huge aspect of the value of your business, either if you're referring that business out or if you're looking to have a saleable business, or if you want residual. Does here nor there, all roads lead to Rome, right? Also, if you have no plan, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more, Bill and I really brainstorm some of the high level common pitfalls when you're trying to do any of these succession planning. So we'll jump into that in a second. So
Okay, so I
buy,
want to,
yeah,
sorry,
please.
Kathleen, I want to address Lorraine here as well. One of the things that, and it's not necessarily a pitfall, but the reality is, um, to remain active and gradually stepping back over a 1 to 2 year period. This is really important. This is what most people do. They wait too long to decide. You need to have a strategy back to what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my business to look like? You need to be strategic at planning 5 years plus out. Typical transitions are to transfer a relationship, so a past client, into a client of the business that will transition to somebody else in the business, takes 3 to 5 years. So you have to really be clear about this and starting early enough in the process. Um, and again, back to both Stacy and Shauna, is having your business work for you. Great. You have to determine what profit margin does that business generate without your labor. Is there a value? And that's the point, because nobody's going to buy something that when you disappear, the value disappears with you. And 1 to 2 years could be a challenge. It can be doable, by the way. I've helped people transition who had health issues that, God, we had to really change quickly. They had maybe, in one particular case I'm thinking of right now, 6 months to a year to live. And we had to transition to somebody, and we were able to transition and maintain that business and kept the team running. It was not easy, but it was able to be done. That's a rarity. Most cases, it's 3 to 5 years. Sorry, Kathleen.
Well, and you had necessity, right? Like we
Right.
have necessity is the greatest motivator still, but often, I mean, in our businesses, what we need to do to create a saleable business or residual income, sometimes we don't feel like doing, right? So it takes a little bit longer because you don't always see why you need these steps until you get there. And you're like, oh, shoot, I get it now, right? As I'm at that place. So buyers are looking for infrastructure systems and profits that are well beyond you, because they're not buying you as a person, they're buying the business, and they need that to be able to run and make, generate revenue off of that when you're not there, for sure. So what are some of the things that are really highly important when it comes to creating residual, or it comes to even buying other books of business and being organized or a saleable business? So one, CRM system, I just commented on that, so very important. Number two, documented processes. And I know, some of us, even me, like we're redoing all our SOPs again. And let me tell you, like 16 years running the other company and this company, I mean, sometimes you feel like you're constantly documenting processes, but it's 10 times harder if you don't have it. If something goes wrong, like Bill said, somebody gets sick, or hey, I changed half my entire team in the last year. Right. So any area of the business that wasn't documented, and trust me, you're always going to have some surprises, right? And you're like, what do you mean? Like, we don't have this. That's just normal. So, I mean, if you have some of it documented 80%, that business can continue to function if you're ill or if you have a change of personnel. But if you're more than that, it's going to be painful for sure. Recurring revenue that's consistent, right? Do you have consistent sales? Or if you don't, do you consistently document the seasons? So you can show the patterns within the business, and annually, year over year, they're predictable, because you want to think about risk, right? Your risk as well as a buyer's risk. If you're saying, hey, I want to run the business, but I'm not there all the time, how much do you need to be there to keep the revenue consistent or keep it running? If you're looking to sell the business, hopefully not that much, right? Hopefully you've set that up.
And
Team.
you have to remember, sorry to
Mhm.
interrupt, you have to remember that businesses are an evolution. Okay. It's like a tree. A tree only has two phases. It's in a growth phase or a dying phase. It doesn't become stagnant. It doesn't stop. It's either growing or it's dying. Businesses are very much the same. So you have to look at your business and say, where am I in this process? And it will evolve. So your documents, your systems, your processes aren't tied necessarily into the individual. In my particular team, when I sold my team and brought in a partner originally, I was able then to spend 5 months in Florida for, oh God, almost 10 years. Um, and that was because the systems were the same. The individuals or the person applying the system changed regularly. We had many more different listing agents or buyer's agents that were doing the transaction, but the system was evolving.
That's so important, and it's actually one of the key places where businesses break when they're trying to build. So what Bill just said is actually so important because you have a top producer and or you have a entrepreneur, it doesn't matter, and they bring in an assistant and the assistant builds around that entrepreneur, and all of a sudden you recruit other salespeople or other positions and you realize that so much of this system with your assistant was actually them catering to you, right? Your unique personality or what's going on. And then you bring other people in, you're like, I don't understand. It's not working. It's like, well, it wasn't built to work with multiple different people. It's built to work with you. So it's always like a sticky spot as you grow that I always say it's a good thing. It's revealing something that wasn't as strong as we thought it was so we can make it better. It's very predictable, but it's so very important. I couldn't agree more, Bill. And Stacy's put a comment here. So I'm just going to go through the rest of the list. And then Stacy, I think this is warranted to talk about because she's saying, hey, I have a brokerage. And if you're in the real estate team world, she's saying I have a brokerage versus a team. She's like, if I have vanity, metrics, like for example, if you're an entrepreneur or a team leader, it doesn't matter if it's real estate, insurance, mortgage, and you're doing the majority of the production. So it's like on marketing, it looks like there's this 6 person, sometimes 30 person team. It's crazy sometimes. And the only one who's actually bringing in business or doing business is like maybe one or two of the people. And one of them are, of course, the business owner or the team leader. The same principles when it comes to business evaluation apply. Where it becomes sticky between the teams and the brokerages is that if you have a standalone incorporated business, it's cleaner to be able to sell that business and set it up and whatnot. Whereas in real estate, we have more complexity when it comes to precs or sub franchises versus, brokerages. So depending how you're set up, there's different, I'm going to call it complexities with selling percentages of your business or selling your full business. But end of the day, and Bill, I want you to chime in on this too. Brokerages, all businesses, not real estate's renowned for, but all businesses have struggled because often the person who runs the business doesn't understand where the business evaluation comes from. So they think, again, I have this business that sold 1 million or 2 million for 10 years, must be worth a lot. But they didn't dive deeper into the stats, the systems, the processes. They didn't build something that the value could transfer to another owner standalone. So they were quite surprised. Or in brokerages, sometimes their average transaction per agent is really, really low. And I mean, we've seen in the real estate industry, some of the big brands and big brokerages really acquire a lot of the struggling ones because in brokerage, the margins can be, in some brokerages, the margins can be trickier, whereas teams can have bigger margins. So it's like, you can have a team with a great margin, but they're not producing. That's still not a strong saleable business. It's really risky. You can have a brokerage with a really small margin. Your people are producing, but you don't have enough of them to have predictability or stability. That's still going to be a tricky sale. So, Bill, I want you to
I'm going to jump
chime
in.
in.
I'm going to jump in big time, and
Yeah.
I'm going to either make some friends or alienate a couple of people. And I apologize up front if I alienate anybody. But here's the deal, guys. And I like your comment, Stacey, because you're right on the money. It's how most people
Yeah.
think. It has a vanity team, aka their actual name. It doesn't matter. Here's the deal, guys. Um, Most companies, Ford started with Henry Ford. There's not even probably a Ford family member works at Ford anymore. It doesn't matter. It's about your brand. What did you build as a brand? So when I started, originally it was the Bill Renaud team, but there was 8 of us as we grew, and that became. But we built the brand, and then we transitioned the brand to the Renaud team, and then transitioned the brand again to Ottawa Properties, which has been sold 3 times and is still operating. So it doesn't matter. Most major companies in the world quite often started as vanity businesses with individual owners. H&R Block. I'm just pulling names out of my hat. Any business. So we're thinking about real estate right now, but think bigger than real estate and think about what is the value of H&R Block. It's huge because they built a brand around it. The individuals are long gone, and that's the point. So is it easier to avoid a vanity name to have a transition? Yes, maybe. But sometimes to start, it is about you. It's about relationships. And that's the point that you're selling. You're selling your ability to create relationships with the business, not just the individual. So I'm going to go back to our team. You could do an open house however you wanted, as long as it was our way. Sort of a Henry Ford. Henry Ford, when he started, you could have a car any color you wanted as long as it was black. That's how the first cars came off the assembly line. They were all black. That was the only option. That was an assembly line. And so in our team, we had very documented systems. This is how we do blank. So that whether the consumer dealt with me, Kathleen, Rocco, or anybody else, they got the same experience. And so they had the same relationship with the business. So quite often people would say to me when I would call them to wish them a happy anniversary, "Oh my God, I remember when you sold us the home." And I look at the database and go, "I've never met these people." They bought it with one of our sales agents who's no longer with the team. When they sold the second time, I was out of the country. My business partner went out on the listing appointment. When they sold the third time, it was one of our other team members who handled it. But in their mind, the relationship was with the business.
Mhm.
So would it be easier? Yeah, if you start with a brand and you knew you were going to go there, but most of us don't. Most of us start off as individuals and start building something. Most businesses in North America or worldwide start off with an individual, and then they build something with saleable. Louis Vuitton, any of these. I said Louis Vuitton just for you, Stacy, just by the way.
Yeah, so true. I think there's, and we'll move forward because it's a whole other conversation. It's a good one. It's a good topic. Like, what do you name the business? And there's been so much, like in conferences, like, oh, never. And they don't want to work for this business because it's someone's name. It's like you work with the business because it has a brand and a predictable service and a predictable result. And that's what people are investing in. And Bill, you said that, beautifully. And in my experience, helping multiple, Bill could say the same, helping multiple businesses shift from solopreneur to team to bigger team to them saying, oh, I have a partner now, or I'm moving out, or we're creating a brokerage now out of the team. Like all the things have happened. And the ones who did it slower and very strategically, and Bill and I talked about an exact example what he did with his business, right? Took the brand that the community knew and add something else that's a bit smaller. Eventually it's a bit bigger. Eventually it's, you make it more powerful. Then you slide this one a little bit back, and then maybe you do it with another one. Like that has been phenomenally successful. But if your business name is your name and that's part of the power of the brand, I've seen people try to switch it because they're like, oh, well, it's going to complicate it to scale and lose a phenomenal amount of money in business because people couldn't find them. They didn't know where they were. So I'd be really careful about doing that. Sometimes the advice works for some, but maybe not.
I'm going to be really quick with this, but Kathleen, you've got on here clean financials. Let's be clear. Financials are not tax returns. Okay, there's a difference between a profit and loss and a tax return. And so it's important to understand that. So when we say clean financials, what we mean is you need to know what are the true expenses of a business. That may mean your tax return. It may mean your tax return adjusted. It may mean you have to, look at what the reality of your business is. And, you know, uh, I have coaching clients who, we're able to write off what some people would call um, leisure items because they work on a lake. So their boat is a legitimate business expense. But you can't write off a boat unless you're showing properties on a lake or a river or an ocean. So you have to be clear. What is a true business expense and what is a true business income? Tax
Mhm.
returns, separate. That's what your accountant, you pay your accountant for. Sorry, I want to make that point really clear.
Yeah, very, very important. And often, again, with real estate being so tricky with the prex and the sub franchise, and the brokerage giving you a financial statement, but what you pay the brokerage has already come off the top. These aren't clean numbers, right? A business is everything you create in gross revenue so that you have clarity, then you're deducting any expenses so you have clean numbers. So yeah, very important. Transferable assets, right? That can move forward with the business. So I'm going to jump in because we have three different options that we're going to dive into a little bit. Right now, we're into the sale of a business. And one of the things that can become complicated is how do you evaluate a business? Because as Bill was saying, if you don't have clean financials, and in both of our experiences when we chatted about this, initially most of the people we've worked with did not, right? They didn't have it organized in a way that allowed them to clearly see profitability or their overhead and whatnot, or the categories they needed. So an example, if you have 300,000 in net profit, so we're talking about after, you paid everyone within the business, any staff you have or contractor or salespeople, you paid marketing, you paid any of your overhead expenses, your leisure items, right? Like you paid for all these things that you're allowed to write off. You have $300,000 left in net profit. So if you were earning $1 million a year, that would be a 30% profit range. Now, there's all sorts of different ways that businesses are evaluated. Multiplier rates are very, very common. They're common with brokerages, with the influence in the US, they've become common with teams, and definitely within Canada now as well. Typically, we see around that 3% as a really common multiplier within sales and service businesses, but it can depend. Like you want to go to somebody specific to your industry for that. Bill and I would know more within real estate, but if you're outside of that, you want to go to a specialist. So the valuation, if you're looking between a 2 to 4% multiplier, you're somewhere between 600,000 to 1.2 million. But only if you have, there are actually 9 things, we've listed some of them, that are used to assess how solid the infrastructure, the systems, the actual value of your business is to a purchaser, and the level of risk. Risk is very important. Often, as business owners, we perceive the risk in purchasing our own business as much less because we're in it. We're doing all the things. We know how to do all the things. But that's the problem. If it's not documented, it can't function on its own. There's a huge risk to outside people. And our alternative method is the one-time gross revenue. And Bill, I don't know if you want to chat about that. That's
Sure.
just kind of a rule of thumb.
So here's the deal. If you're already trained and operating and you're good at running a business or a team, and you can show that you are being profitable, that you're watching your expenses, income and expense, be it sales agent commissions, be it marketing, etc., typically you should be able to generate at least a 30% profit. If that's the case and you are consistent with doing that, then it's okay to look at a business saying, hey, they're generating $1 million in revenue every year for the past 5 years or 10 years. Therefore, that value of the business is probably worth $1 million because I know if I can bring in sales of 1 million, my cost will be 70%. Therefore, I will net 30% profit. If I have 30% profit, it comes back to the same amount, 600 to 1.2 million income. So there's two ways of doing it. If you're a really good business person, this is a great multiplier because if somebody is not structured, does not have structured financial statements, you know that you can go in there and run their business or run their leads and make it profitable. You've got experience. It comes back to my first comment, which was relationships. This is about is the relationship with the individual or the relationship with the business? And be clear, when I say the individual, it may feel like it's with the individual, but it's with the brand. In my early days, it was the Bill Renaud team. So it was with the brand, but it was my name. At the end of the day, it wasn't with my name, but it didn't matter. It was still with the relationship. Did I answer that okay, Kathleen? By the way, you guys can
Um,
hire us to help you if you're thinking about doing this. And
yeah.
both Kathleen and I have done many, many, many team transitions or help people buy businesses or attract businesses to join their team. So
Mhm.
we're also here to help with that, if that's the case.
Yeah, and more the last couple of years, it's a big strategy, right? To
Yeah.
acquire other people's books of business or acquire other businesses because they weren't organized. So it's cheaper, frankly, to acquire those businesses. And if you have a structure, you can pull more opportunities out of it for sure. So yeah, you explained that perfectly. Thank you so much, Bill. Um, and common mistakes. So if we're looking at selling our book of business, we're going to the second option here. And we're looking at selling our book of business. Just before we move forward, Helene had a question. Is there a percentage ratio you recommend to keep expenses between? I certainly have rules of thumb on that. Bill, I'm assuming you do too.
Yes, definitely. Typically, and Kathleen's really on this, you have to say, what are you worth? What is your time worth? You should be on sort of the same split, if you will, or some type of a split. What is the cost for you as if you're generating 100% of the revenue, what are you worth? You don't make 100% because you pay advertising, marketing, you may have an admin assistant, you may have brokerage fees, whatever. So typically, um, if it should be like 30% expenses, 30% cost of sales, which are salespeople, and 40% profit. You may need to back that out a little bit if it is adding in what is your income, your time worth. If you are a 100% team leader that are doing sales only, then your income is tied into the sales function. In my case, in the beginning, that's exactly what it was. I was a salesperson. By the end of the business, in the first 3 years, I stopped working with buyers. In the last 5 years of my team, I didn't really work with sellers. So I was overall, so my income had to come from the management of the business. It didn't come from sales. 70% of the sales came in from other people. So it depends on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of businesses, like if you need a quick rule of thumb, the old school is the thirds, right? And I think it's a good rule of thumb. Like a lot of business leaders use it as to support team members in evaluation, right? Like, hey, if you're going to invest, $1, are we predictably going to have three come back? Like, is that a safe rule of thumb when you're investing? But within the business, the thirds are a third typically cost of sale, a third for overhead and expenses, and a third for profitability. And you really need to understand that setup because, like Bill, I mean, I haven't, my role in my own company has not been one-on-one coaching for many, many years, but we run a coaching company. I do it a little bit, but 99% of the coaching is within our phenomenal team, right? We get to work with amazing people. So I'm focused on, having our brand out there, expanding the brand, marketing, creating opportunities, supporting the service and the levels we provide. So all of a sudden, like Bill, I mean, I make money from doing different things within the business. And then if it's profitable, you have that residual, or you can choose to reinvest it, but then it's not profit, but you guys know where that goes. So second option, we're selling our book of business. So this is not necessary. This not even necessary. This would not be, with your necessarily lawyers and accountants, like you're not selling a corporation. You're not, listing the business like a restaurant might, but not the lease space, right? Like think about it. If you're buying a business, but they don't own the real estate, right? They don't own the brick and mortar, you're buying the systems and the brand and the name and the quality, right? The reputation and our ability to deliver on that reputation. Whereas when you're selling a book of business, it's a much bigger playing field. Some people do this really, really well and they're very structured. Other people feel like it's just, listen, if I send you any of my business, you send me a referral. So this is done in all sorts of ways, but we want to give you some insight into what supports it actually being viable for you and the person purchasing it, right? So if you're selling your book of business, you're hoping that your clients are going to hear from somebody's going to take care of them, you're going to make a little bit of money as these things move forward. So one of the most common mistakes. And I understand why it happens. We work with a team, and this happened, I think, like a year or two ago, where there was a succession plan, and the agent was leaving the book of business. In this case, with the team, it was equivalent to a sale because there was a structure in place, but they were so excited about it. They announced their retirement, because it was an exciting personal moment for them, right? And unfortunately, that causes a massive issue on your plans to have residual income, because as soon as you announce your retirement, like Bill talked about, like, not only do you maybe say, okay, like, what do I still do? Like, how do I connect that personal confidence or clarity with what I do in the world? But the people who think of you, right, who think of you as their doctor, their dentist, their lawyer, their real estate agent, are like, oh, they're retired. We're wishing them well. So we're thinking of somebody who is still in the business. So, it's extreme to say kiss of death. I don't mean it literally, but it's the kiss of death of the referrals working well, to announce the retirement and go silent. Selling a book of business requires collaboration. It requires a strategy. It requires still both people, to be in the dance. Even if one's leading more, the other is still supporting. So Bill, you talked about already the 2 to 5 year transition, being realistic, to prepare, know how you want things to be set up. And there's all sorts of different strategies. Like, I've seen succession plans where there's more money year one, less money year two, a lot less money year three, and then it's done. It's like, hey, I'm going to get paid for 3 years and then I'm out. Typically, that seems more common where the person selling their book of business is kind of going to do other things. They just want to see the business surviving, but they don't really want to be involved with it anymore. Much
And
more
remember,
common. Go
depending
ahead.
on where you are, and again, I coach people across North America, so depending on where you are, in most provinces or states, you need to have a real estate license so you need to keep a license to get residual fees. You need to be like I'm going to pick province of Ontario, for example, because I think a lot of people are from province of Ontario right now. And you look at that and go, in province of Ontario, you need to have an active license to be able to generate, to be on a trade record, to have referral business. Or like myself, I'm now, I live in the US, I'm US citizen, I have a US corporation. As long as I have a real estate license, I can still do a referral. So you need to make sure that if you're doing this, and the reason for the transition is, how long are you going to prepare to keep your license so that you can receive these referrals and meet the legal requirements. Number two is, what is your commitment? So in mine, as I phased out, my commitment was for 5 years. At the fifth year, it was really show up, wave, kiss babies, whatever. Which was mean if they did a client event, they would pay me a day fee to come to the client event. They would pay me my travel if that was appropriate, and I needed to attend X number of client events annually because I was still part of the brand.
Mhm.
So what is your value? And so this is all very flexible depending on what you want and what the buyer wants or what the seller wants. But typically it's 3 to 5 years, is that's the typical. And the other thing you have to look at is, you know, somebody asked in chat, what's the typical expenses? Typical marketing expenses, office expenses, staffing expenses should total around, as Kathleen said, a third, 30% or so. And the others are sales expenses. So you also need to have a relationship with that database. So part of my requirement was to ensure in the beginning years, I was still in touch with the database, or my name was still in touch. I was still on the website. I didn't say I was retiring. I was still part of their brand. I'm part of the brand. And so the brand has more value because I had part of that brand. And then the set clear cash terms and referral shares. What's that? How's it? It is typically a ladder going down because the less you're involved, the less you're entitled to. If you're getting, it depends how big your business. I had, we sold over 6,000 homes. So that was a big database, and our business was 78% referral. So that database was producing long term. I had a huge value in keeping in that relationship.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the protecting your assets value is really important that you are clear. What does the buyer, if it's a buyer, or the seller need to do? What are the commitments? So I've seen too many businesses where somebody said, "Oh, I'm going to refer it to so and so," and you've been a geographic farmer for 20 years in an area, and now the buyer takes over your database and doesn't send a mailing in 3 years. They disappear. They become a secret agent. They've lost relationship with the database. They've destroyed the brand. So you, as a seller, are not going to get as many referrals because they're not doing the work. So you may want to put in that contract that they have a requirement to geographic farm to this level, this many mailings,
Mhm.
first year, second year, third year. This is all variables depending on how big or how small your business is. And again, Kathleen and I can help you with that.
Absolutely. And this is why sometimes if it is a business and you're, transferring it, you can have very multi-phase strategic plans and it's for these kind of safety nets, right? And sometimes there's clawbacks. Like sometimes you can take the business back depending if they're not doing the things to keep it running as needed, but it's more to nurture, right? The person who's taking over to allow it to be successful, which takes time. Like you don't know what somebody doesn't know until it becomes clear. It takes time to go through that and nurture and coach, and you want that because you want the legacy aspect, let alone the financial aspect. For most people, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into building our businesses. We want to see them continue on and be successful. So acquiring a book of business, we've already talked about, but to clarify,
Sorry.
pitfalls to avoid: seller stops marketing, clients don't convert, so nothing's coming back, and making sure you're looking into compliance for whatever state or province you're in. It's a little bit different depending where you're at. So make sure you look into that as well. And we find success comes from strategy, systems, and support, right? When you're doing these types of transitions. What's included in a sale? It depends on what you own. I mean, sometimes a business with a corporation could have holdings, right? Again, they could have brick and mortar. More and more, it's shouldn't say it's fully moved away from that, but depending on the sales and service types of business, you might be leasing, you might be working from home. But part of the sale would be your website, your domain name, as Bill said, geographic farming or your branding, your marketing, database, CRM, your brand equity, your financial health, your lead sources, and your marketing systems. That would all be included in the sale. And we didn't put it here, but the biggest place people get tripped up is that your sweat equity is not included in the sale, and it's also not included in the business evaluation. So if, as most, we talk about bootstrapping, right? Like, I don't know, Bill, when I started my company, I was like, I didn't have any money. It was like I had a service that was really valuable. So I needed to bring that service to the industry to have cash flow. So I'm always like, cash flow is queen. Like, I'm not lending money, I'm creating a revenue here. So we want to make sure that, maybe we're bootstrapping to get our businesses going. But at a certain point, if you do a phenomenal amount of sweat equity in your business, which means you're doing things that you're not paid for, when they go to evaluate your business, they're going to look at what market value is to pay someone else to do those things. And they're going to adjust your numbers for that. So that part's not included in the sale. And it could really, adjust your business evaluation for sure. Multiplier reality check. I feel like we talked about this. Bill, anything we want to add in here? Are there any questions on how the multipliers work? I feel like
I
we,
don't have anything to add to that. I think we've
yeah,
been
I
more than
think
clear.
we've,
But again, if we get something in chat, we'll answer it.
okay,
I just put one
perfect.
up there a minute ago because I replied to somebody. Typically, physical expenses are around a third or 30%. But and so you have to be really careful and clear here. I see too many people hiring team members saying, "Oh, I'm going to get 10% off them, so I'll give them 80 or 90% or whatever commission."
Yeah.
But if you're spending 20 to 30% of every transaction in a business in marketing, staffing, etc.,
Mhm.
you're losing money on every transaction. So you need to be an entrepreneur and look at this from a business perspective, not an income perspective, a business perspective.
Yeah, and this has been really interesting because, there's some companies are like team specialists and saying, hey, like cost of sale when it comes to service. So like I'm insurance, I'm paying someone else to go out and do sales or mortgage or real estate, whatever service or sales you're working with. And they were talking about, oh, it's gotten more competitive. And now, everyone's trying to have more bodies and more volume, particularly in the States. This is more common right now. Like you need to be paying higher, higher, higher. But the reality is when you have people who come in and help businesses, sales and service businesses scale, there's like if you're over like 30%, 40%, like you're right at that line. If you get up to 50% or 60% that you're paying out cost of sale for somebody else to support, your consumer, like to be out there face to face or providing what do you call it? Finalizing the sales, what I'm trying to say, then you add 30 to 40% overhead. They're like, you are already, it's mathematical, you're not profitable, like that business is not viable on its own. You're investing to allow those sales to continue. And I think it's interesting to watch the trends happen. So you really need to know where your model is, right, for what's going to work. So this is a whole other topic that you can go really deep. You can really geek out on it. And if you're trying to sell business, I recommend you do. But for today, it's probably more in depth than we're going to do. Wealth planning is freedom. Failing to plan equals losing opportunities. For us, if you're working 10 years, you want to build an asset, right? Not just trade your time for income. And if you're going to work anyway, why not build a legacy? Succession planning is definitely not just about retirement. It's about future freedom, wealth, and choice. And I want to make sure, I think I might have skipped accidentally one thing. Oh, right here. I thought we were summarizing, but okay, I'll just make sure I didn't clarify this, guys. That's my bad. Acquiring a book of business. We talked about selling your business, selling your book of business. Acquiring a book of business is just the other side of the coin, right? So if you're acquiring somebody else's, the pitfalls would be that you don't want to stop doing the marketing they were doing. You don't want to stop being connected with those clients. And you want to make sure that marketing wise, I've seen lots of businesses succession planning wise, like Bill talked about, bring somebody into the marketing, like recruit them from a external marketing, right? Like, hey, we're celebrating this person's joined our business, like this new partner or this new person here. And then over the months to come, they're setting up the succession plan that person's still in the marketing, but they're not actually servicing and supporting clients. Like Bill said, they're coming to the client events, they're showing up, but they're not active within that business. So really what we're getting at is look at the optics, right? How does the consumer feel? Do they feel like that is a safe person to go to still with their business? Because you're not going to get those referral opportunities if people don't think they're active. So I just want to make sure that we are clear with that
So
part.
I'm going to give you an example in the real estate industry. So Barbara Corcoran, a lot of people know about Barbara Corcoran, you know, and started in New York as a realtor, built this big, nobody walks into their New York office today and expects to deal with Barbara Corcoran. It's still called Corcoran Group. She's not even there. She's a shareholder, but she's not involved in the business. It's still Corcoran Group. So it's your brand. What did you build? What's the relationship? So you can build it as big as you want if you build your brand and what is the work that you're doing to get the return on that profit. So you have to make sure when you're doing your succession planning and what are you buying or buying other businesses that ensuring what do you expect from that individual for a period of time.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, if you're building your business to get to that point again where you're a standalone brand, right? Where somebody says in the coaching industry, we have it all the time. I coach with Tony Robbins. Well, some of them do, but most don't, right? Like we know this within the coaching framework. And it's interesting because you kind of know you've had that level up where it's like, oh, I coach with that brand. And they don't mean the person, they mean the brand and the values and the delivery. So looking at what we're trying to build. And I think again, my concluding piece of this is when I keep saying all roads lead to Rome, it's like if you are, bottlenecked because you're burnt out and you're exhausted because you're doing a great job at what you do, but you don't have enough support, you need to add some systems, add some CRM. You need to hire the right people. You need to train them. You need to document that because you're literally starting to build the foundation. Then hire other people to support and take more time off. It's like you have all these additional opportunities that you want to use to support other people, which is amazing. that doing that right, doing it in a way that works for those new team members and or business members, however you like to say it, and works for you, is the exact same path that gets you these choices and gets you these opportunities. So both Bill and I, that's essentially what we specialize in, helping people build efficient, productive, profitable businesses that give them choices at the end of the day, whether that's time, that's lifestyle, that's financial. The reality is you can't skip those building steps. And if you do, you're leaving a phenomenal amount of money on the table that would have been yours if you built, in a fashion that's seen as valuable, let's just say, in the business assessment world. So I wanted to share a video. This is with Rachel Harsvord to give you guys an idea of what we do within KBI if you're looking for some business building support.
Holistic approach, which is funny because I am not like that at all. It was something that I think at first I was a little scared of, very nervous, but once I got into it, I just realized how much that mindset was needed
Oops.
to be a leader, to be anything in this industry. Just the way that she led, not just let's work on your business, but it's that holistic way. First year coaching with Kathleen, I was a 250% growth. My second year was 300, and this past year, 2024, was 400%.
Damn, I gotta
Yes,
get Kathleen.
it was wild, wild ride.
Any last things you want to say to Kathleen?
I love everything that you're doing. I'm so proud of where you've come, especially over a lot of this last year. I think we've all had a lot of adversity, and I am just proud of you that way. And I'm just so thankful for everything that you have given me in this business to become a great leader.
And Rachel is a phenomenal leader. And she's, 400% growth over the couple of years of working with us. And I think end of the day, she had an admin go on, she hired admin, had one go on mat leave, hired another admin, they moved into sales, hired another admin, and it all came down to, again, same foundation, right? Does she have a documented process? Is the CRM built out? Can somebody else step in? Life is going to happen, whether we're retiring or we have to replace somebody or somebody's going to live a new dream, and leaving our team, life will happen. So if you're looking to have that confidence, I mean, both Bill and I are here. We're going to take questions, but in case anyone has to hop off, we do have an incentive with KBI. If you need support with us, you can book a strategy call. I'll be taking those myself personally then over the next couple of weeks coming out of this masterclass. And we have 30% off the first 3 months of coaching. On top of that, you get a VIP ticket to join us in Niagara Falls, November 24th to 26th. It is our 10-year anniversary summit. So we're so excited. You're going to hear from people who have had phenomenal growth over the last 10 years to inspire what you can do in the decade ahead. But I want to make sure I'll put the QR code here. So if you want to connect with us, you certainly can do that. But Bill and I are here at least for a couple of minutes for any questions that you may have.
And I would like to throw one comment in there, if I may, to everybody. This is from one of my first mentors that I ever had. And Kathleen, you've been a beautiful example of this. Get out of judgment and get into curiosity. In other words, right now, if you're not as knowledgeable as you can be about acquiring a business or selling a business or documenting what systems you need in place, then get out there and get curious. Talk to other people who've done it. Talk to a coach. Talk to friends in your brokerage who've done it. But get curious and then get clarity. You get really, really good clarity on what you want to accomplish.
No, absolutely. And thank you guys so much for this. I always learn something new when it's both of you guys or individually. I was on a session with Tyler today. He put a question in the chat for you guys. I wasn't 100% sure on how to answer that. And maybe you guys could.
I'm going to take it offline from that because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. It's a huge area, but I'll send Tyler a message. And raising funds, it's a double-edged sword. It can be good, it can be bad. But again, anytime you're going to do something like that, you have to look at what's the risks to the brand, risks to the business, and risks to the people involved. So it can work. It can be, and I've had people successful with it, but what are you trying to achieve? So this is a much bigger than a 3-minute answer. This is a much bigger question. Kathleen, do you want to add to that, or is that?
I agree. And Tyler, you brought this up when we did our strategy call together. So Tyler's a new client with KBI, and I agree. It's strategic. And I think it's, Tyler, you talk to Bill and I, and it's like you see so many great partnerships, and then you also see the ones where people walked in and maybe weren't prepared and things don't go the way that they thought. So we're a bit, I'm going to speak for Bill slightly, but I'm pretty confident on this one. We're really focused on getting ahead of any problems you may not foresee that we know are more likely to come up. So that's what I'm hearing Bill say, like there are ways that this can go south. And I think, Tyler, if Bill's willing to, have an email, I would do that. For sure, just to kind of make sure you get some insights and you do that well. We've certainly have clients try to do all sorts of, partnerships and joint ventures and things that they thought would get them to the big project sooner. And sometimes it did, but sometimes it actually ended up taking them longer just because the strategy wasn't strong enough. But I love that question. I love the vision, Tyler, like 100% cheering you on with that. Okay, I'm just seeing if there are any other questions coming in. And give us any
Tyler, if you're
insight.
still listening, I typed my email wrong, but
Oh.
it's at Kathleen Black, not.
Did you get it, Tyler? You have it?
Let me see.
Yeah, check, because Bill put it direct to you, I think. So just make sure you got it. It's not in the general.
Yeah, Kathleen Black. Yeah, okay, I got it.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So that Bill doesn't get, 100 messages when the recording goes out. So on this note, both Bill and I want to thank all of you for joining us. We do love this work. So as Bill said, if you're curious and you want some support, reach out, do a strategy call. Happy for that. And I want to thank you, Bill, as always. I love the collaboration and the energy, and I really appreciate, what you pour into our community and being able to work with you. So thank you as well.
It's a pleasure and honor.
Thanks, Bill. All right. On that note, you will get a follow-up email from our team. We definitely will send out the recording. And if there's any masterclass topics that you would like us to add to the fall agenda, definitely let us know in chat, or anything you want to dive deeper on, we'll take it into consideration. And other than that, we hope you have an amazing summer, because I think August we're taking a bit of a break with our master classes, pulling back, reorganizing for the fall, and then we'll be back in September. Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Keep well. Stay safe.
Thanks, guys. Ciao.
Ciao.